And welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another AFLW round review. We have went through the penultimate round. Round 11 has come. It has gone. Only one more left until we find out who are the 8 teams that are going to be playing for a flag and some fascinating footy we were privy to this particular weekend. And here to help me break it down, a very good friend, a very awesome friend that I love chatting footy with, the host of Kanga TV. We have Marnie back. Marnie, it is great to see you again.
Donnie, thank you so much for having me. You know how much I love jumping on the pod and chatting footy with you. I tell you this every single time. I never cease to amaze me how much you know about the sport and every league across the country. It's amazing, and I hope one day I can live up to the very high standard that you've set. But I'll do my best to keep up today.
Well, I will tell you this. What you are doing for at Kanga TV is fantastic. I keep track of it. I may not be a North supporter, but I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing. You put your heart and your soul into this because you love it just as much. I do mine a little bit different. You do yours a little bit different, but in the long run, we're both doing something that we're very, very passionate for. So it's a mutual thing. You're not the first person to tell me that. I know I've had a few on my YouTube comment section that have said like, Coach, how you know more than me and I live here. So I've heard
Amazing.
the comment before. I take it as a badge of honor. I truly appreciate it. I love the sport. I've fallen in love with the sport of Aussie rules football. I love the leagues. I've found so many fascinating people. It is a labor of love. I know that I will say this. As we are recording right now, it is 5:16 in the morning. I have to get up early sometimes. Sleep deprivation is my friend during this time of the year. But you want to know what? I love it because I love talking this amazing game that is football. So now that we've each congratulated each other and stroked each other's egos for the tiniest bit, in the polite and kind way that we do, let's hop into it. Miss Marnie, here we go. Round 11 has come. It has gone. 9 more games are left until we have a final season. Just really quickly, your thoughts on round 11 because we were privy to some pretty darn good football.
Yeah, I think the eight's sort of shaping up. I mean, we still don't have an eight set in stone. It's really going to go down to the wire. I feel like this season as a whole, and it is tricky for me speaking as a North supporter because we're kind of in a league of our own and not the same way the men are in a league of
Mhm.
their own. Um, but it does really feel like for the first time in a very long time, we're seeing a genuine even spread across the competition amongst the remaining teams in the eight. It used to just sort of be this three-horse race, North Melbourne, Brisbane, and Adelaide for so long. That was sort of the three-headed monster, and they've really dominated the league for the last sort of, I'd say probably 4 to 5 years, it'd be fair to say. There was a couple teams here and there. I know the
Mhm.
D's were in there as well, but this season it really feels like a lot more even, a lot more well-rounded. And this is just another round to reflect on that.
Yep, I'm 100% with you. It really kind of is the easiest way to say it this year is you have one team that legitimately, I think everybody that you talk to in the W space will say, North is here, Melbourne, Brisbane are here, Adelaide and the rest are here. And it's the gap is so much closer than it was, but there is still the significant gap between where North is playing at the astronomical level that it is playing and most of the rest of the competition. I mean, it's almost unfair to watch this North team play because they are just very well built. I say this, and I don't want it to end for you, Marnie. I'll say that. I don't want it to end for you. But unfortunately, I think their time is coming closer because you do have a lot of aging veterans, a lot of experienced veterans that their time's getting close. Emma Carney, Emma King. You're starting to see some of these elite level players that they've had for a while. They're getting closer to retirement. Wouldn't even surprise me if they do again. I don't want them to because I love watching Emma Carney. I think she's incredible. Emma King has found herself back on the side and is starting to play some great football as well. But they're closer to the end than the beginning, which I think, unfortunately, when that does happen, then I think this competition finally becomes what I think everybody wanted it to be. And it's where you don't know who's going to win the premiership because each year can be different because the infusion of this wonderful, amazing, fantastic young talent. I mean, this draft class this year is just blowing every draft class out of the water at this point. Again, Gemma Bastiani is throwing out super draft. That is how good potentially we could see this. I mean, the names they're too numerous to try to say right now because I would be forgetting somebody. So I'm not even going to make the attempt. So no, I am 100% with you. This is a fantastic year. It is so exciting. You never know how the results are going to go. There really is only one that we know, and usually it's North, and North's going to win. And usually by at least 5 to 6 goals or more. So let's go right into it. Let's jump to round one, Friday night football, and we finally see it. The showdown on a Friday night all by itself, and we were treated to a ripping game of football as the Port Adelaide Football Club finally get their first win in the showdown women's side as Port Adelaide get a 7 point win over Adelaide 52-45. And I will say this, I love Port Adelaide's growth, but this, I think for me personally, this is more about Adelaide has come back to the field in so many ways because, as I've said a few times on the podcast this year, this is not the same Adelaide side that we saw for the first 6 years of the season, where they were the cream of the crop. They were the best. They were the measuring stick of this competition because of how much talent South Australia had. They had a huge advantage. Port wasn't in the competition, so all the best usually ended up in the tricolors. Now that Port has joined the competition and that the draft has now become national, Port Adelaide has, you have seen their powers have weakened a little bit purely on the fact that they're not just instantly getting the best South Australian talent. This is an incredible game. Love what Lauren Arnell is doing at Port Adelaide. And for the competition, this may be a good thing because this shows everything is starting to become parity and become balanced as a competition.
100%. I think the what we did see as the hunt, they were the hunted for so long, Adelaide, and now they're sort of turning into the hunting. They're kind of on the fringe of the eight. Don't know if they'll actually make it or not. And I think it's definitely a sign of evolution and growth, as you said, Donny, not just for Port Adelaide, but also for the competition as a whole. Things are starting to look and move to a more even playing field. I think for Port, I think this is a really important win for them. First showdown win, no matter at any level, any time, no matter where these two, sides sit on the ladder, every single time they face each other, it's really highly anticipated. It's a real hot contest. And I think for Port, they played finals last year. They made a really gallant run home. They kind of just ended the season off with a high and then, also won a final. Like I think they really were running off a lot of momentum and a lot of energy. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to back it up in the same way this year. But hopefully, this is a little bit of a step back for them to then hopefully step forward a few further steps next season. And this, I think, would just be a really great consolation prize for them for the season for sure.
Yeah, it's the cruel thing about it, and I think a lot of people will admit it, is that the competition's still not playing everybody. This is where it rears its ugly head a little bit because last year, Port Adelaide, they benefited from a little bit of, shall we say, a softer draw. They didn't have to face the best of the best for most of the season. They played maybe one, maybe two of the big three, and that's it. And sometimes that set them up. Now, I thought they played fantastic last year. I don't think they've played as well this year. Injury has really hurt them a lot. I mean, you lose Cuthbertson earlier in the year. Piper Windows had some injuries. I know they've lost several players to season-ending injuries. They've been constantly battling. Indy Tahu has had to go from being a really solid back woman to now being a forward and being a really good forward, which I think has been a pleasant surprise for them. But there's been some inconsistency, and they've been exposed a little bit by playing some of the better teams in the competition this year. Like I said, it's the cruel nature of this competition is that it really is what's the luck of the draw? Like that
Yeah.
last year they benefited from that. Sydney benefited from that 2 years ago when they made the finals their first year. If you ask everybody, they didn't play North, they didn't play Adelaide, and they didn't play Melbourne. They played Brisbane. That was the only top four side at the time they played. So it's very easy in a 10 or 11 game season when you play one of the top four sides and the rest of them are towards or towards the bottom of the competition. So it's a little bit easier for them to get in. So Port Adelaide this year maybe got a little bit of the reality of this is where you actually stand in the competition. But I think it's been really good for Lauren Arnell's side. It's really with the growth. And with Adelaide a little bit is you could tell they're younger now than they were. I mean, you've got significant additions that are young, like Brooke Boylo. You've got Indy Rashid. You've got some of these youngsters that are relatively new in their careers that are now having to play significant time for this Adelaide Crow side. That again, like I said, was they were the they were the measuring sticks of the competition. They've come back to the pack a little bit. I still it's going to be interesting whether they make the eight or not, just because they're right there. It's really interesting to see like could they miss? And if they do miss, what's the fallout? Because their coach is retiring after the end of the season. So this isn't going to be one of those, well, the coach is going to get fired. Well, the coach is walking away. So how will that affect the coaching search? Because what are they going to be sitting? And the other thing too is if they don't make finals, a little bit of a better draft pick. So it's an interesting dichotomy for this Crow side. I think they will. I'll say it personally. I think the Crows make it. But we will see. It'll be quite the fascinating watch coming into these next weeks. So let's hop up to Henson Park, beautiful Henson Park, as the Sydney Swans pull off a 17-point win over the West Coast Eagles. But I gotta say this, even as a Swan supporter, this game was marred a little bit because Ella Roberts, less than 2 hours before first bounce, goes out with hamstring awareness, is not playing. I already knew Chloe Malloy wasn't going to play, so technically, I thought this balanced this game out. Best player on Sydney side, best player on West Coast side, both weren't playing. Daisy Pierce's girls with a valiant effort, but the Swans really led this for most of the game. They looked really good, jumped out to it. Beck Privatelli comes back in, kind of been in and out of the side, kicks 3 goals in this, looked absolutely fantastic. Loving the Swans' pressure. The Swans give themselves a chance. If they win next week, maybe get a little bit of help percentage wise, they could find themselves again back in finals for the second time in 4 seasons.
I've actually been impressed with the Swans. I feel like they've been a little bit unlucky in some situations this season where they probably like the result could have gone either way and they've just found themselves on the wrong side of it. Equally, I've been really impressed with what Daisy Pearce has been doing
Mhm.
with West Coast as well. I think for these two sides, it's again, it's the Swans, they were one of the last sides to come into the competition. I feel like Scott Gowans has done a really, really good job, and everyone at Sydney's done a really good job of kind of quote unquote exploding onto the scene as best as they can, trying to play catch up with the rest of the competition. Whereas Daisy's kind of brought West Coast into relevance and sort of into contention for the first time in the women's side's history. They've both come in, both part of that last group that have come in, and I feel like it's probably been a little bit of a challenge. I think when Geelong and North came into the competition, they obviously had access to a lot more talent before they entered the comp, and that then led to a bit of a rule change. So for these two sides, who I would say probably started off a little bit on the back foot, still some really impressive games and still some really impressive performances. And hopefully, as I said, particularly with the Swans, they may still make final. We don't know. We don't know. There's
Mhm.
still so many question marks around it. But both of them have kind of coming along probably nicely the way they would hope.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you. I mean, as I've said a couple of times on the podcast, I mean, it is kind of it's a scary, sad stat that Daisy Pierce is already the winningest AFLW Eagles coach of all time, and she hasn't even gotten through 2 seasons. Like
Yeah.
that is how it's a sad stat, and I hate saying, and I don't like saying it. I don't take pride in it. I take pride in it for Daisy because Daisy is proving that coaching will be a thing that will change this. Now, it also helps. Daisy's walked into a great situation. Ella Roberts is incredible. Love her to death. Miss seeing her on the park as a Swans fan. There was part of me that I didn't mind not seeing her because I knew she can take over games and become one of the best in the competition. Unfortunately, I think this may cost her a best and fairest medal, which stinks for her, but I think there could be more in the future. So I think Ella will be okay with that. But she's molded this group. This group is Daisy Pierce as a team, and it is fantastic. I love it. They're gritty, they're tough, they get after it, they don't give up. they could have rolled over in the first quarter when the Swans jumped them. They really could, but they sat down. They kind of gritted their teeth. They got back into the game, got it back to it. They got it back within a goal. And Sydney just had a little bit more talent. There was a scary moment where Cynthia Hamilton looks like, at first I thought she tore her knee ACL. I swear to you, I thought she did. Thankfully, it sounds like it comes out as just a really bad syndesmosis, which unfortunately really stinks because that means she's probably done for the season, which really hurts because we're already no Chloe Malloy already. And now Chi potentially could be out for at least the rest of the foreseeable future, unfortunately, which I mean, I absolutely love Chi to death. She's fire and brimstone. Absolutely love her when she plays because she plays with so much emotion. And I truly, truly think she's a fire starter for the Swans a little bit. But no, when it comes to the Eagles, I love what they do. Lucia Painter's fantastic. Swanson, so many great players. Again, I think what Daisy's doing is fantastic. I think she really has this Eagle. They're fun. They're a fun side to watch. Again, not so much fun when you're playing them, but they are a
No.
fun side to watch. They get after it. They're very structurally sound. They don't beat themselves. You have to physically beat them. They don't beat themselves. And I love that Daisy has installed that with it. Again, can both of these teams make finals? Yes. Will they is the main question. West Coast really are the purveyor of their own. They win this week, they're in. Sydney wins this week, most likely they're in, unless something hairy goes nuts when it comes to it. So will definitely be two teams that I will definitely be keeping track of, and not just because I am a Swans supporter. So let's move on back down to Windy Hill. Unfortunately, where the Essendon season continues to roll on, unfortunately, in very, very painful circumstances. To all my Don supporters that are listening to this, I want to give you a virtual hug because I feel horrible for this Don side because they're ravaged with injury, they're ravaged with inconsistency, and unfortunately, your gift this week was a Hawthorn Hawks team that is playing some darn good football. But I gotta give this scrappy Don side some kudos because for 2.5 quarters, they were right in this game. It was never more than 14, it was never more than 12 points. They were in it. They were up and about. Hawthorne finally went, we're not doing this anymore. Kicked it into gear late in the third quarter, and then in the fourth quarter, extended the lead to the 30-point margin that it ended up being 56-26 for the Hawks. Anya McDonough, again, fantastic, looking great. Aileen Gilroy's return has shown the skill and talent that Aileen has. She really has really jump started this offense that for the longest time, while she wasn't on the park, was struggling to kick goals. But again, kudos to Essendon on this. They tried their tails off. Just when it comes to it, the talent and class of Hawthorn showed up late in the game when fatigue started to come in.
It seems like the men's season for the Bombers has just sort of trickled in and continued
Yep.
for the women, unfortunately. Yeah, it's sort of been, I feel like it's been like that for the Bombers for the past couple of seasons. They do have some big names in that side that just haven't been able to translate that on the park. For Hawthorn, that's where my interest probably lies. I feel like they're a little bit of a sleeping giant. I feel like this season they've taken a massive step forward.
Hmm.
We play them coming up this Friday night. It's the first time
22.
we've
Yep.
ever played them. We've never played them in the AFLW before.
Hmm.
And I think it's going to be quite a hotly anticipated clash. We easily dismissed Brisbane earlier in the year. We easily dismissed Adelaide. For me, Hawthorn is probably the biggest current challenge to North's position. But they can't. We've won the minor premiership, sure, but every single game you think, oh, is it this week? Is it this week? Is it this week where someone's going to get on top of us? And for me, Hawthorn kind of look like the most exciting and probably the team that would maybe challenge us the most at this stage. Aileen Gilroy, a North Melbourne product initially, fantastic player, absolutely love her. Same with Katie Ashmore, another also a star.
Hmm.
I really like the Hawks. I like what they're putting together. I think this season's been great for them. Like I said, I think they've come leaps and bounds. And for me, they're probably the biggest threat and the most dangerous side in the competition away from North.
Yep, no, 100% with you. The only thing that's a little bit sad, and again, it's the cruel nature that is footy is that it won't be Emily Bates with Hawthorn this week. Like I will say this, I think I would love to see full strength Hawthorn versus full strength North Melbourne because I think it'd be a cracking matchup. But no Emily Bates terrifies me the tiniest bit. Jazz Fleming has been fantastic. Tilly Lucas Rod, they've moved back to the halfback line and have absolutely been fantastic there. Really was able to use their ability to kick the footy and to spread it out. I agree with you. Caitlin Ashmore and Michaela Williamson on the wings for Hawthorn really has used their spread. And then just their forward line is incredibly difficult to stop when you have Aileen Gilroy, who is absolutely elite when it comes to her speed and craftiness with the football. And then Anya McDonough has slotted right into that full forward line, and she uses her pace, she uses her speed and her skill that she has. They're a dangerous side. North, I cannot wait for that matchup, legitimately. But this is one of those, again, I agree with you. Kudos to the Bombers. They gave everything they possibly could again, but the Hawks just a little bit too classy. Speaking about being a little bit too much for a side, Fremantle shows they're just a little bit too good for the Richmond Tigers as they get a 44-point win, 58-14. The Dockers keep their chances of making finals alive. Unfortunately, looking at the ladder right now, it's the percentage that's going to kill them. A couple of games earlier this year, 50-point losses really has hurt them because being over 20 points, percentage points behind Sydney, I think is going to be the reason Fremantle falls short of making finals. Mathematically, they can still make it, but unfortunately, I think percentage is going to get them considering they're even with Sydney, Adelaide, and West Coast for those final two spots, all on 24 points. But unfortunately, Fremantle, like I said, 82.2 percentage points compared to the three others at 108, 109, and 118. Fremantle's got to get some help here. They've got to win and they've got to hope a couple of those opponents lose this weekend. It's going to be interesting. Loving Fremantle. Again, I think they're going to be unfortunately, I think they're going to be one of the outcasts that just miss it. That if you look at their list, though, they probably should be there. But unfortunately, a combination of the way the fixture ran out and a couple of really bad games that they're probably ruining is probably going to cost them a finals bid this year.
Been a bit of a fall from grace from Freo. I think you talk about Adelaide and how they've kind of evened out, I
Mhm.
guess, and maybe they've lost a little bit of talent with the introduction of Port Adelaide and then the draft going national. You could probably say the same about Fremantle. I mean, they were
Yep.
a powerhouse. They don't really have, unfortunately, anything to show for it in terms of silverware, but they were a powerhouse of this competition in the early days. They had some big names running around there, but I feel like over the past few seasons with the introduction of West Coast, and West Coast are not really. I mean, I know that both of those sides are still in the
Mhm.
mix to make the eight, but up until this year, I wouldn't have called West Coast a threat, really across the competition. So I do sort of not really sure what's happened to Freo there because on paper, they've still got some of those big names and they've still got enough talent, you'd think, to be able to challenge properly for the eight. But it's clearly not enough scoring power if they're sitting 20 odd percent behind the next best. And Richmond are just no good. Like, let's just call a spade a spade. They're just no good.
They've fought injury, inconsistency, and everything. I mean, Montana McKinnon. I just feel gutted for her because she comes back from an ACL injury, gets two and a few minutes of a quarter in, and then does it again. Like you can tell they're hurting. Poppy Kelly is doing everything that she possibly can to try to be the rock, but unfortunately, she's usually undersized and usually overmatched. And then just they've really been inconsistent. The three-headed monster, Grace Egan, Ellie McKenzie, and Mon Conti they've not fired too many shots this year. They haven't, except for that Adelaide game, which I think right now is looking even more like a, a red herring hugely because of it. They haven't really fired a shot this year. They haven't done what they normally do. Caitlin Greiser, Katie Brennan have done what they usually do up forward. Unfortunately, I think Amelia Yassir has really lost a lot of her jump this season just because they haven't gotten the same amount of of footy. They haven't had the delivery that they had the previous couple of seasons. You can tell that. And the defense at this point, I mean, I feel so bad for Beck Miller and some of these defenders because they're constantly under avalanche and avalanche and avalanche of forward attack, and they're doing their best. I mean, Beck Miller is a fantastic defender, but there's only so much that these defenders can do when the footy's coming in every 45 seconds. So
Yeah.
it's very difficult. Again, this is one of those you chalk it up as a Richmond player. You chalk it up this year to the injuries. You try to get the list healthy and ready to go because if you look at it on paper, and again, on paper is it's a well used moniker. On paper, this should be a final side. If you look at the
Yeah.
talent that's on this list, it should be a final side. They
Yeah.
won't be. They're looking close to being spooners this year, which really kind of stinks. Them and Gold Coast are going to be fighting for that spoon spot, which in some situations is very interesting considering Gold Coast has the number one overall girl this year, Ava Usher, is a Gold Coast academy player. So it'll be fascinating to see if Gold Coast does get the spoon. Do they take Ava with the first overall draft pick, or do they try to get greedy and try to get both one and two through through the academy bidding? It'll be quite interesting to see how Gold Coast handles that. So let's not go into that because I know that ruffles some feathers when it comes to academies, when it comes to Victoria. So I will move on to what has to be game of the round, and that is Brisbane versus Melbourne up at Brighton Homes Arena up in Queensland. And the Lions get it done with a 9 point win, 45-36. And ladies and gentlemen, the Queens that are the Brisbane Lions are back because they've struggled this year. They've had their moments of weakness. They've had their moments where they have not played well. Melbourne has been everybody's talk as the second best side, but Brisbane goes, nah, we're still here. Until you take us down, we're still here. And Brisbane does it again, 45-36, a 9 point win by the Lions. A fantastic game of football. But man, I felt this first quarter, just this first quarter, I had bruises because these teams were tackling the living crap out of each other for the first 10 minutes of this game. If you touched the footy, you got tackled. It was awesome.
It's awesome. It's a that to me is a really good example of what this game should aspire to be, and we
Mhm.
should be seeing more and more games like this as the seasons go on. I think with Brisbane, they've been sort of in that top three to four sides of the competition for a very, very long time now. We know they're such a good side, and I understand they've obviously had a bit of an off year, but they've risen to the challenge really, really well, and they've found a way to win. And I think it's so underestimated, just across football in general, how important it is to know the value of winning and finding ways to win. It may not be pretty, they may be playing beneath the expectation that they had, but for them to sort of emerge later on in the game and then to hold on to a 9 point victory, I think speaks volumes given the circumstance. And while traditionally they would be looked at as the team to beat, clearly they've come up against an informed Demons outfit who have been one of the best sides in the competition this year. And they have been around the mark for the past few seasons as well. I think at home, yes, there's an advantage for Brisbane, but they probably would have started as underdogs in this one. So for them to actually find a way to grind through the intensity and the pressure and then to emerge as winners, I think is a really, really important step for them in regaining a bit of confidence as you go towards the finals.
Yep, no, 100% with you on this. Again, Melbourne this year, they frustrate me the tiniest bit because they've had this what some would say soft draw after last year's result. Last year they didn't finish where I think they wanted to. I think it has benefited them their draw. They didn't have to. They won't face North Melbourne this season, so that is a huge advantage for most. But the problem is that the game against Fremantle, where they kind of tripped over their own feet and unfortunately lost that game. And since then, you can tell they have that game where they look like the second best team in the competition. And then they have games like this. Again, this is a Brisbane side. They're veteran, they're experienced, they know what they're doing. Starcevic has this side absolutely cherry ripe again at the right time of the year. The one thing I always say when it comes to AFLW is There's death, there's taxes, and there's Brisbane getting to their best form right around the last two rounds of the home and away season and going into finals cherry ripe. Almost always, Starcevich has his girls ready to go come finals time. So I knew this was a danger game for the D's. I knew this was a danger game for the D's. I was hoping that the D's talent and skill that they've shown all season, I thought they could find a way to even get the win on the road up in Queensland. But Starcevich does it again. Like I tip my hat to you, sir. You have done wonders up in Queensland. I mean, what women's footy has done up in Queensland is incredible, and he's one of the architects of it. But the fact that he's constantly had to revamp this side, I mean, Brisbane is the team that honestly, they are the proof that so many people complain about, well, the expansion hurt us, expansion hurt us. What did Brendan Starcevich and the Brisbane Lions do? After each and every expansion, somebody left their side. Emily Bates, Sab Frederick, Caitlin Ashmore, so many players left that team from those early seasons. But what has he done? He's put in a great academy that has built in some great players, and he has matured some younger players into those roles. Jade Ellinger, look at what Jade has done. It's been fantastic seeing her come up. I honestly think she has a really good shot of getting an All Australian Blazer this year. She's been incredible at the halfback line. Orla Dwyer and Sophie Conway out on the wings. I mean, literally, tell me a better set of wings in this competition. I don't think I can think of any, really, when it comes to it. Neve Kelly is about it when it comes to it that right off the top of my head, I can go, there's a wing that I think could be all Australian right at the start of the year. Sophie Conway, Orla Dwyer are two of the best wings in the entire competition, and they're both on the same team.
Mm.
And then their defense is always solid. Jen Dunn's played fantastic, but back there, their forward line, Courtney Hodder and Dakota Davidson, both fantastic up forward. And then you add Taylor Smith to it. Their midfield, Allie Anderson is incredible. Talia Hickey is an undervalued rook, in my personal opinion. This is a Brisbane team, again, on their day, can be one of the best in the entire competition. And right now, again, Starcevich got him cherry ripe come finals time. Cannot wait. I honestly would not shock me if you see another Brisbane North Melbourne grand final again, because that's how good Brendan Starcevich has the Lions usually going about this time of the year. But can Melbourne step up? I saw some things, a few things they could adjust. Again, they've fought a few injuries as well. Meave Chaplin being back really has she's been fantastic. I cannot wait for this finals because the top four is going to be incredible because you've got some cracking teams. North, Hawthorn, Melbourne, and oh my gosh, I'm totally brave. And Brisbane are the top four right now. And you could even see at this present point, if things play out, you could see a Brisbane North qualifying final.
Yeah, wow.
It is going to be so much fun to watch now. This was game of the round. So we go from that to a game that honestly I had more fun watching this game because of the conditions that these girls had to deal with, but they had a crack, and I absolutely love it. As Mars Stadium down in Ballarat looked more like the Florida Everglades because every step that these ladies took, there was a splash of water. And every tackle that landed, you saw it was like a water park. There was water going everywhere. I will say this, these girls had a crack. I loved it. I thoroughly enjoyed this game. Was it the greatest football because of the field conditions? No, it wasn't. Let's just be honest. This was not a game for the football purists that love the pinging around of the footy and tons of scoring. This was the one of those arm wrestle, slog, get after it, tackle fast, ball hits the ground and stops because of the water. It was so much fun. Cats get a win by 11, 37-26. The doggies get after the cats. I don't know what else to say because literally, I had more fun watching these girls hydroplane sometimes when they hit the ground. And I don't want to take away from the football because honestly, I still think there was still a lot of supreme talent. There was still some great passages of play, but the field conditions, I felt horrible for the girls because they had to have been absolutely soaked at the end of this game. I mean, every single one of those boots, there's no way that any of them survive this
Yeah.
weekend. There's no way.
Nah, just making the most of the situation presented, I think. luckily for them, I know this is a probably not the best way to look at it, but luckily for them, it was a little bit of a dead rubber. So the conditions probably didn't really, I mean, it impacted the flow of the game, sure, but there was nothing major riding on this for either side. I know that's not ideal, and I do think that the AFL should be able to make calls to change locations of games like this if there's a severe weather warning coming coming into play. But yeah, like good on both sides for just getting on with it, fronting up, making the most of it. And yeah, Cat's just too good in the end.
Yeah, I was waiting. I really want. I was hoping. I never saw. Would have loved to see somebody score a goal and then just do a swan dive and then pretend to swim. That would have been hilarious. I'm sorry.
Ah,
Maybe it's the cheekiness of American sport, but I've seen that before, where you get a wet weather game and they have a little bit of fun with it. So I would have thoroughly enjoyed if they would have done that. Unfortunately, I don't believe anybody did, but it was like I said, I was watching it and just every step. It was insane, but
shocker.
yeah, but like I said, it was still a cracking game of football. They got after it, so absolutely loved it. So, all right, let's go to the game that I know will bring a smile to my co-host's face as her beloved North Melbourne Kangaroos continue their winning streak, handing the Saints a nice 46-point defeat, 67-21. I mean, I could start with names, but I'd be here for days because this is a North team that just it seems like everybody is playing good football, no matter who's on the park for this Rouge side. They're playing well. I
Yeah,
mean, Emma King comes in, kicks 3 goals
yeah,
in this game. She,
yeah,
for a while, couldn't even get into the side, and she
yeah.
kicks 3 goals. Blaheem Bogue has been an incredible wonder considering last year she was on the roster, she was on the list, and never
Mm.
debuted for a team that went undefeated. And this year has become one of the talks of the entire competition. So, as the North supporter that you are, I will let you have your moment. Please gush over this side because, again, North just too good. I don't want to disrespect the Saints. I thought the Saints, they did what they could, but this is just such a good North side.
Yeah, it's one of those things I said it before. Like every week you kind of go in, you're like, okay, is this the week we're gonna get knocked off? Like it feels too good to be true. It's like a weird thing where like you become used to it and you become so accustomed to winning every single week. And I know, and I've spoken to Bella Eddy. Bella is a really good friend of mine and she comes on the channel quite regularly. We catch up and talk about the W. And I said to her, like, what happens, when we lose a game? And she goes, it doesn't really bother us. Like, we know it's probably going to happen at some point. It's not going to derail our season. It's not going to derail what we can achieve, which is the ultimate success, sorry, once again. So, with all of that in mind and knowing that St Kilda were coming into this game a 6 game winning streak, they actually were in pretty good form coming into this game, despite where they're sitting on the ladder. They gave us a little bit of a scare in a second, but the thing with this North side, and I've said this all year, and I've even said it last year, we've had quite a few injuries this year. We didn't have injuries the same way. Last year, our only major injury was to Emma Carney to any of our major like star players. But we've had Carnes in and out of the side this season. Emma King has been in and out with injury and then obviously couldn't break into the side as well. Bella Eddy had an injury. Taylor Gatt, Alice O'Loughlin, Jazzy Garner was out for a couple of weeks. Like we have had so many players impacted with injury. We also rested Jenna and Carnes this week as well. The depth of this side is scary good.
Hmm.
Like the system is so good and so solid, and the game plan is just drilled into this team so well that anyone can come in and play a role. Tess Craven, I thought was excellent as well. And I think to your point, Donny, when you talked at the top of the show about North, and we've got a couple of veterans like Carnes and like Kate Sheil, or these girls who are potentially coming to the ends of their careers. I'd argue that we're just replacing them with as capable players who our depth is scary good. Like we've got so many players waiting in the wings. And we talk about Blah as an example. Like she didn't make her debut at all until this season, and now she's come in and she's the talk of the town. You've seen further development of Tripodi or of
Hmm.
Erica O'Shea is another
Yep.
one who's had an unbelievable season.
Mhm.
Jazz Ferguson is ever reliable down back. I know Libby Birch is probably also in that category of veterans, but we've got depth. We've got players that can just come in and replace them. I think the confidence amongst the group, the bond amongst the group, um, and just the trust in themselves is taking us probably that extra 5 to 10% further every single week. And the results are speaking for themselves.
Yep. No, well, I 100% agree. The one thing I gotta give this north side is that they're not just relying on the tops like the Jazzy Garners, the Emma Carneys, the Ash Riddells. They've it seems like there's always a player that steps in and makes an impact each game. It's never the same. Now, you get the normals. I mean, Ash Riddell, you almost chalk up 40 disposals every game. It's kind of insane the way that she must have leather poisoning with how much she gets the football. Jazz Garner makes an impact no matter what way, whether it's 25 and 2 or it's 30 and 4 or her 6 goal game that she had this year. Jazz Garner again, like if she does not get at least 15 votes in the best and fairest, come on, we need to do an investigation because it's a travesty. And to hear the rest of the competition when you talk with them, like they're all stunned. They're like, what? Like why is Jazzy not getting like I guess I just don't get how she doesn't get more plaudits from the umpires than she does because
Yeah.
again she's constantly around the football. She makes an impact. I love Ash Riddell to death, but she's a disposal machine. It's insane. Like so I don't know.
Yeah.
It just you
Very
see
lucky.
you almost see no weakness in this North team. The way they're so good structurally behind the football again. They're missing is it Wright is out for the season with personal issues. Not a single bit of difference. Ferguson and Birch have taken those fullback spots and absolutely been fine. Like I said, Emma Carney had fought with injury, hasn't been in. She's been in and out this season. Erica O'Shea, I agree with you. I think Erica O'Shea is one of the most improved players on this team. She's looked
Yeah. She's great.
incredible. She's
Yeah.
finally kind of let the and I say this again, I say this as a endearment. She's let the Irish out in her because she's starting to use her run. She used her ability to get into space and to find her kicks have been fantastic. She's another one I've been talking with Mike Curran about. I would love to get Erica on the show to chat with her about how things have kind of progressed with her at North because again she's absolutely flourished this year, and it has been incredible to watch. No, again, St. Kilda, I love you to death. You've got some incredible talent, but this was just one of those you ran into an absolute cyclone when it comes to it, and you kind of try to survive, and
Yeah.
they did.
Pretty much.
They should still make finals, but again, this is a North team again. I think they're destined to make a grand final. It's who's their opponent and can that opponent have their best on the best day? Will really, when it comes to it, be how I kind of look at the rest of the season is it's North and who meets them in the grand final.
Yeah.
Unless something goes nuts, everybody gets gastro or whatever. I think it's the one of the few ways North is going to lose because the form is incredible, the cohesion is incredible, and the ability to use their depth that they have has just been marvelous to watch. And again, I am not a dynasty person, never have been, but I kind of want North to do it just to irk off the old school, the male fans that are so mad that a women's team is probably going to have the record for most consecutive wins in a row beating the Geelong of the 50s. I kind of love it because it's a kind of up yours to
Yeah.
those fans. So I kind of
Good.
enjoy it. It has been fantastic. So we'll move on. Let's go to Icon Park as Carlton just too good for the GWS Giants. But I gotta say, lightning delays caused some interesting social media things because catching some of the Carlton social media where they were chatting with the players as they were watching this storm go through Icon Park and just it was fascinating to watch. It did kind of change the momentum of the game a little bit. I know GWS came back from the break, kind of started to get themselves in the game. This is one of those if you look at the game for the first 2.5 quarters, I mean, Carlton was just too good. GWS could not do anything. Sophie McKay was fantastic. Brianne Harrington was fantastic. Poppy Schultz has really stepped forward and done a wonderful job as she is taking that kind of half forward role and really made it her own. But the Giants kind of after the lightning break, Carlton kind of took their foot off the brake gas a little bit. Jess Doyle goes for three. Jess Doyle goes for three. I know Brody Mowbray had a fantastic game. I think she had her record amount of disposals in this game. I just, I'm gutted for GWS because again, the girls are trying. They're doing their best, but they're just their list has been ravaged this year with injury. I know Elise Parker both being out really hurts them, and I just don't know if they have the depth. And this is a Carlton team that they got the lead that they needed, and then they kind of went, "Oh, we're good." And that's kind of the way the game. The second half of this game was a little bit lackluster, purely on the fact that Carlton knew they were going to win this game. GWS didn't have enough scoring ability. But man, Carlton at the start of the game, they looked absolutely sensational, and I cannot wait to see this team. I want them to make finals because I think they could make some noise with some of the players that they have. Brianne Harrington coming back to her own as being one of the best rucks in the entire competition. Tara Bohanna has somehow, in my opinion, found a way to fit into this Carlton side. I was a little worried she wouldn't fit because it would be too tall with Jess Good, Brianne Harrington, and and Tara Bohanna. I was worried it wouldn't fit. They'd be too tall. They wouldn't have enough pressure. They've proved me wrong. I'll eat my crow on that one. I'll touch wood on that. But man, this Carlton side, when they're up and about and they're going, they're fun to watch.
Yeah, they were definitely a side that I was really nervous to face earlier in the season. I've been really impressed with the way they've been able to reinvent themselves this year. I know they were obviously such a strong contender in the early couple of seasons of the AFLW, and then I felt like as more expansion teams joined, they sort of faded away. So it is nice for Blues fans to see them back. Obviously, the lightning delays doesn't really help anybody. It probably killed a little bit of momentum in the game as a whole. And kudos to the Giants for having a bit of resilience and coming out when play resumed and actually having a crack now, whether that's partly because Carlton put the cue in the rack and just sort of thought, oh, this is it, this is done, we can see where this is going. But still, the Giants threw everything they had at them, and it wasn't ever going to be enough. Even though the Blues do take their foot off the accelerator a little bit. And kudos to them because, like I said, Carlton, I think I've been really impressed with the way they've played this year. I think they look really, really strong, and they look like one of the best sides in the competition when they're on. Like they're really, really on. And I agree with you. If they can play, if they can make finals, I think they could give some sides a bit of a scare. I think if they bring their A game, then they could be a bit of a silent threat.
Yep, no, 100% with you on that one. And we'll go to the last one, which, as you kind of stated earlier, Marnie, a little bit of a dead rubber, but I'll give it. This was a cracking game. This was a cracking game of football because these two teams got after it. Collingwood get a win up at Bond University by 15, 39-24. But this was this was so close almost the entire game. It really wasn't until midway through the fourth quarter that this thing blew out past 12 points. This was back and forth. Gold Coast had the lead. Collingwood had the lead. Gold Coast had the lead. Collingwood had the lead. The young talent of Gold Coast, again, it's maturing, but I'm fascinated to see how this goes because I'm hearing some little birdies talking that a few of their top level talents could have to move out if they want to bring in all of their potential youngsters. I've even heard rumors Charlie Rowbottom could be on her way out of Gold Coast because they may have to use her to get the draft picks able to bring in, I think it's at least three, if not four, academy players that are all in the top 30. So it's going to be
Wow.
interesting to see how what this Gold Coast team does because again, as good a factory as they're building up in Queensland, and they're creating some really good football. They're putting in and bringing us some really good footballers. Could they have to trade some of their best players to get the draft capital that they are going to need to keep them in the Gold Coast? Because if not, again, exactly what many people don't see as much here in the men's competition is the Gold Coast talent factory producing for players throughout the rest of the competition. It'll be fascinating to see. But I loved this game. This was another one of those arm wrestle ones where the two teams had a crack. And I absolutely love that. Again, Collingwood has dealt with injury all season. They've dealt with inconsistency. They've been a team, they're constantly competitive, Whether they get the win or not is usually the question. And this Gold Coast team, they fought everything. They fought injury, they fought inconsistency, they fought just absolutely low confidence because they've taken some beatings early in the season, and you could tell the girls were really, really down. Had a couple of games where I think they got their confidence back, started playing some good football, got a win here, so at least they don't end the season with a zero in the W column. But cracking game of football. I don't really want to go hugely into this. Again, two teams that are towards the bottom, trying to get through the season. Some good for Collingwood. You get 4 points. You get a win on the road for Gold Coast again. You blood some of these youngsters like Havana Harris, who I think is going to be a superstar as we go in, because her abilities, for her size, for her height, and her ability for her to go through the midfield, to run with them, but to kick goals and also be a ruck. I mean, she can ruck. She can midfield. She is like the Luke Jackson of the women's competition. She's one of those, she's a unicorn. I cannot wait to see Havana Harris grow, because she's going to be an incredible footballer as she grows and matures into her size and her frame. It's going to be so much fun to watch.
Totally. I think as you sort of nailed it, Donny, it's a nice little morale booster and the season off on a positive note for Collingwood. I know there's still one game in hand, but both of these sides have had pretty underwhelming seasons. You definitely don't have the Gold Coast playing like they're sitting rock bottom on the ladder. It's nice. They could bring a bit of a competitive edge to the game. And for them, I think it's really just auditioning who's going to be there next season and who's going to be moved to the side. I think it's going to be a fascinating off season for the Suns. I think they need to be aggressive in their approach as well, because clearly what's there at the moment isn't working, isn't gelling the way we might need it to. So yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting off season for them.
Gonna be fun. I'm gonna be fascinated to see how Gold Coast handles this. Like I said, with so much young talent that's under their academy. How do they make their moves? Like I said, could we see a Charlie Rowbottom potentially being sacrificed to be able to keep all of that young talent still up in Queensland? It'll be fun. So that is all 9 games for round 11 left. That leaves us only 9 games left in the home and away season. We will talk those games a little bit later. We go to the burning questions, the questions that have been mulling around in coach's head, because I'm fascinated with one round left and a lot of intrigue around the bottom of the eight. Be fascinating. So there are 2 games that I think are really going to affect the finals representation. Okay, and I'm fascinated on this, Marnie. West Coast versus Carlton and Adelaide versus Fremantle is the last game of the round for you. What's the most intriguing of those two to watch to watch? Because personally, I think they're both intriguing, but one has a lot of storylines that I cannot wait to discuss.
I think from a North perspective, the one that is probably more interest of me is the West Coast Carlton game, because of those four teams you've mentioned, West Coast is the only team we haven't played this season. So we don't really know what we'd be coming up against, should we face them some point along the road to finals. I think Adelaide versus Fremantle naturally is an intriguing one for us. Adelaide have been a bogey side for us in the past. Obviously, being in that mix along with Brisbane, they're probably the two biggest threats to us just by nature. So I think both of them equally as intriguing for different reasons, not just from my perspective, but from the competition and fans as a whole. From a personal North perspective, I think that West Coast Carlton game for me, just be keeping my eye on it, as West Coast is the only wild card side of the four
Mhm.
from my perspective, where I don't know what we'd be up against because we haven't played them yet this season. But for the competition, it's hard to go past Adelaide and Freo in the last.
Well, I'm going to say it this way. This is the reason why I'm going to say this, is because I've seen this thrown out by a few people. There is a possibility, if Fremantle Adelaide goes Fremantle's way, the Crows can miss finals. I didn't think I would literally say that out of my mouth, but if you look at the machinations, it is possible, because if Fremantle beat Adelaide, Sydney beat Essendon, Crows out, Swans in. It's that simple. It is insane to think. And again, do I think it's going to happen? We'll find out in the tips. Oops, a little teaser there. I will say this, that I'm going to have to stay up to watch that game. No matter what Sydney does against Essendon, I have to watch this game because it is fascinating because Fremantle, no, they have to win. They need help. They win, things get very interesting, especially considering we know if Sydney were to beat Essendon, Crows are out because Sydney would have 28 points. Boom, right then and there. I have to say Adelaide Fremantle, like I said, because the fact that there is a possibility that the Adelaide Crows, three-time Premiership Adelaide Crows, can miss finals. That has me incredibly intrigued because I'm again to my Crow supporters. I'm not wishing it. I'm just the possibility is there. It has me just absolutely a tizzy because it's the last game of the round, and we're gonna know who's in, who's out, depending on that result. We know what's gonna happen. If Sydney beats Essendon earlier in the round, Sydney will have 28 points. The Crows will be out of the finals at the time that they step foot on the field with Fremantle if Sydney win. It is insanely fascinating to watch that. Now, who knows? But I'm literally sitting here just I'm looking at the ladder going, like I said, four teams from 7, 8, 9, 10 all have 24 points. And like I said, 118 for the West Coast Eagles. That gives them a little bit of a buffer percentage wise. So even if they were to drop that game to Carlton, it'll be fascinating. And to see Sydney from ninth, if West Coast were to lose to Carlton, Adelaide were to lose to Fremantle, Sydney could jump all the way from ninth to seventh.
Wow.
That's how insane that could be, just percentage, just points wise. So there's tons of different ways we could look at this. But for me, Fremantle Crows, like I said, because Crows have to win to make sure they're in finals. Because if they lose, there's a very possibility they could miss finals if they were to fall to Fremantle on that last game of the home and away season. So let's go through it. Let's take our magic ball here. Let's take our magic 8 ball. One round left. The finals are down to 9 teams. Like I said, I love you, Fremantle, but unless you smash Adelaide, I unfortunately I think your percentage is going to keep you out. So 9 teams. Sydney is the one team sitting out. But like I said, Sydney has Essendon. So a lot of people are kind of chalking up that Sydney should win that. So who's the team that's unlucky that's sitting at home come the 1st of November?
I don't know. I kind of, you're going to learn something about Fremantle, aren't you, on the weekend?
Hmm.
If they are the real deal, they could put in a hell of a performance.
Well, and thinking about it too, if it were to go this way, okay, if Carlton were to beat West Coast and Adelaide were to win, and Adelaide were to lose, okay, if Fremantle and Sydney would be in, West Coast and Adelaide would be out because they would have 28, Crows and Eagles would have 24. Both Fremantle can still get in, but they need West Coast to lose to Carlton to make sure that's a possibility.
Yeah.
It is
Okay.
insane, these thought processes. So,
So if we put Fremantle aside, you've got to have one of Adelaide, West Coast, and Sydney missing.
yep.
I don't see Sydney losing to Essendon. So it's probably West Coast then.
Yep. If
Like
if yep.
realistically, I don't want to disrespect Fremantle because I would
Hmm.
love nothing more than for them to get up. But realistically, just if you're going on logic and what you think should happen in your mind, it's probably
Hmm.
West Coast, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the fact that I'm 100% with. I think it's West Coast, and that's because how bad is the hamstring awareness for Ella Roberts? Because going up against Carlton with that vaunted midfield, Hill, McKay, Finn, Aaron Fitzpatrick, and all the people they can rotate through. Brian Harrington versus Mimstrom, again, another ruck competition that I think is going to be worth the price of admission, just the popcorn watching those two amazing rucks go at it. Some really good defenders, some really good forwards. I cannot wait for that one. But if it goes that way, so say Adelaide beats Fremantle, West Coast is the one sitting out if Carlton beat them. So it's my logic in my brain, because I'm used to Adelaide being in finals and I don't think they should miss, it
Yeah.
would be the West Coast Eagles. But there
Mm.
is part of me that goes, Adelaide has a lot of pressure they're not used to. Usually they're going into this final and they're talking about who they're playing in the qualifying final. Are they
Yeah.
going to be at home or are they going to be on the road? Very rarely do we have this discussion of is Adelaide going to make finals? Like it's a different level of pressure that I'm not sure Adelaide has really had to deal with for a lot of their time under Doc Clark. So how do they respond? I think the first 10 minutes of the first quarter is going to tell us what Crows team we get. If Fremantle get a couple of goal lead and Adelaide look a little listless or a little bit shook, it could be a long day for this team. Again, I think they're at home. Double check the fixture really quickly. Um, yep, they're at home, so it is at Norwood Oval. So that does help the Crows out a little bit, not
Yeah,
having to go out
definitely.
west. That definitely helps. But again, this is a Fremantle side. This is a chuck at the stumps. Have a crack because
Yeah.
there's nothing. If you lose, you kind of hate saying it, but they're supposed to lose. Like if you ask most experts, they're supposed to lose this game. Again, experts. I'll put
Yeah.
the finger quotations for those that are just listening to the podcast. They're supposed to lose. Adelaide is supposed to win this game. Fremantle's not supposed to win it. Have a crack. Get after it. I want to see Turbo and Aisling McCarthy just have a go. Just
Yeah.
have a go because you never know what's going to happen. But I think talking myself through this, the normal part of my AFLW brain goes, I think unfortunately it's the Eagles that fall
Yeah.
out. And I feel gutted for Daisy because they've had an incredible season. And for it to kind of fall apart at the end of the year because Ella Roberts goes down with a hamstring injury, you face two teams that have been pretty solid this year in Sydney and Carlton in your last two. It just feels like such an anticlimactic way to end the season. And it's almost a travesty, just the tiniest
Yeah.
bit because of how good they've played. But it's the most likely outcome I see. But
Yeah.
like I said, Fremantle they've done crazier things before. So it's
Mm.
definitely going to be fun on that one. So we go to the last question, and I know again the smile will grow on Marnie's face as I ask this. As the North supporter, this season must be a dream. And I know that the men's side has caused you many a heartache and many a tearful night. But this women's side, I mean, it must be like a dream to sit through this year. Are you confident in your chances that your beloved Ruse can go back to back?
Yeah, I think you've got to trust what Darren Crocker and the girls are putting together. I mean, the results speak for themselves. They're absolutely sensational. I don't know if confidence is the right word. I don't think that anything in this life is guaranteed. And
Hmm.
logically, yes, it looks like that's the direction it's heading in. But when you're in it, you're kind of thinking, oh, well, is this going to end? I think naturally, as a football supporter, you sort of enjoy the roller coaster for whatever it sort of brings. So, yeah, I think that they continue the way they're going and they should, at the very least, put themselves in the frame to play another grand final and hopefully another winning grand final. But I know how hard those girls work, and I know that Darren Crocker's got them really just focused on one step at a time. They don't get ahead of themselves, and that's probably why they're in the position they're in as well. A really good energy, a really good trust, and united front amongst the group, but they just take every single week as it comes and treat every single opponent the same way. And that's why they just keep putting up these results. So, yeah, obviously, to answer your question, yes, it sort of looks that way at the moment, but nothing is
Hmm.
guaranteed, and you don't want to sort of get ahead of yourself.
Well, for me, confidence is like I believe in my group. Like if I'm sitting here right now, like I'm looking at this north side going, again, it's a weird thing to say, but half the team have to have like the most terrible, very bad days for them to lose because they've just been so solid. They've just been so
Yeah.
good. They're, like I said, structurally, they've been fantastic. I mean, Libby Birch and Ferguson, I mean, like a brick wall back there. And again, they're already more talented than most of the teams that they are playing because of the skill that they have going forward through the midfield. I mean, few teams have Ash Riddell, Jazzy Garner, Jenna Bruton, Taylor Gatt, Tess Craven. I mean, some absolute fantastic players through the midfield. Your forward line, again, who do you stop? Vicky Wall, Blaheem Bogus come out of nowhere. Kate Sheilor can have her day. Kim Rennie can have her day. Emma King has stepped up and played well. Has played well. Who do you stop? How do you stop it? It's like trying to hold. It's like trying to hold back an Avalanche with one hand. It's just
Yeah.
almost impossible
Yeah.
because no matter what you do, no matter what coach, there's no team that has five amazing defenders. No team has it. Somebody's going to get off the chain. It's who. And
Yeah.
that's, I think, is this the scary thing about this north side is that so you stop Kate Sheeler. Well, now Wall and Bogue go nuts. Okay. Well, you stop Bogue. Well, then Wall and Sheeler have a fun day. Emma King comes in because you maybe don't have a huge tall defender. She goes for 3 goals. It is literally it is a next person up type of thing with that. And then again, you look through the midfield, they rest Carney and Jenna Bruton in this game. You put them right back in. I mean, where was the step back with two of your better players on the getting a rest? None.
Yeah.
And you played a
No.
team that most likely is going to make and a Saints team that's making finals this year, and you beat
Mm.
them by 40. So, I'm for me, I have the confidence. It's like I said, I think North is in the grand final. It's who they play.
Yeah.
And then how competitive is that grand final? Because as we saw last year, when North wants to, they can smack anybody around. And
Yeah.
they're better this year than they were last year. That's
Mm.
how scary this
Yeah.
is. So I think it's North and who in the grand final right now. Like
Mm.
I don't think I'm jumping off or making too much of a spoiler here. I think I'm going to tip North to win the premiership of the year.
Great.
And I don't think,
That's what I like to hear.
and I don't think I'm the only one that's going to be making that declaration. So that is it for burning questions. We go to team of the week. I always have so much fun. I'm interested to see Marnie's reaction on this. So we'll start at the fullback line again. As a coach, you always start defense wins championships. At the fullback line, we have Serene Watson of the St. Kilda Saints and North Melbourne's Libby Birch. Along the halfback line, we have Essendon's Maggie McLaughlin, Melbourne's Meave Chaplin, and Geelong's Beck Webster. Along the halfback line, in the center at the ruck, Brianne Harrington. Welcome back to fantastic rucking. At the wings, we have Dana Finn of the Carlton Blues, and Sophie Conway of the Brisbane Lions. In the center, Anne Hatchard of the Adelaide Crows, Aisling McCarthy of the Fremantle Dockers, and Melbourne's Kate Hoare continuing her fantastic season this year. Along the half forward line, we have Poppy Schultz of the Carlton Blues, Jess Doyle of the GWS Giants, and Nell Morris Dalton of the Collingwood Magpies. Along the full forward line, we have Emma King of the North Melbourne Kangaroos and Anya McDonough round out the starters from the Hawthorn Hawks. On the bench, defender, we have Richmond's Isabel Bacon. Our midfielder is Abby Dowrick of the Port Adelaide Power. My ruck is Alicia O'Dowd of the GWS Giants. My forward, Beck Privatelli. Welcome back to the first string, and she is my forward bench player. And my utility, I'm going to make you smile here, Marnie. Tess Craven of the
Mm.
North Melbourne Kangaroos. So had to give that goal Tess kicked. I had to give her a little bit of kudos. She was fantastic in this game. So had to give her a little bit of love on that one. So I know it's a lot of names really quickly. Your thoughts on this team of the week?
Donnie, you're the expert here. I definitely know. As long as there's a few North names in there, I'm happy.
Well, Libby was fantastic. Again, Emma King kicks three. That seems to be kind of the floor of getting in this week. And like I said, Tess Craven was fantastic. I've loved her ability to step in since Taylor Gaddis had her injury issues. She's been able to come on the wing. She moves, shifts forward. I've loved what Tess has been doing. So had to give her a little bit of love on
She's
that
a
one.
star.
Yeah,
Love
she's
Tess.
she's fantastic. Love watching her play. So we go to it again. My homage to the fourth and long part of the podcast. Again, I stay with my roots a little bit. So we go to the power rankings. Again, this is forms. The last 5 games. How many games have you won in a row? And how many games have you won in the last 5 when it comes to it? So at 5, the Fremantle Dockers. At 4, the St. Kilda Saints. At 3, the Hawthorn Hawks. At 2, the Brisbane Lions. And surprise, surprise, still at 1, gathering dust. I mean, somebody get a feather duster because they've been up there so long. The North Melbourne Kangaroos sit
Mm.
atop the power rankings at 1. Shocker, shocker. So all right, again. So I mean, what a shock! What a shock that an undefeated team is number 1 on the power rankings. So let's go to it, Marty. We always have to end the podcast round 12, last round of the season. We have to do our tips. So let's hop into it. I know we're still early again. Injury lists haven't come out. We'll see, but I'm interested because there's some fantastic games, including Friday night footy, the first of two, both of them crackers. As we start off with your beloved Kangaroos, go to Kinetic Stadium down in Frankston to face the Hawks. One versus two. Cannot wait. Roos, Hawks, who do you like?
North. I always
What
tip
a
the men,
shocker.
and they're not even that good. So I'm not going to tip against the women, that's for sure.
I legitimately think this could be a fantastic game. But I will say this. The Hawks are second, but when it comes to the second best team in the competition, I'm not sure they're the second best team in the competition. I think North exposes this a little bit. The depth of North, the abilities, the few things that I do, if I am a North supporter, that you have to find a way to kind of take away supply of Aileen Gilroy. Because if you can take her away, that kind of neutralizes Anya McDonough a little bit. So I'm fascinated to see how Darren Crocker handles this. Can he find somebody to kind of neutralize Aileen Gilroy? Because if you can neutralize one of their best ways to go forward, I think it's going to be a fantastic day for North. Again, North's too talented. They're so good. They're going to win this game. The question is by how much. It will be the biggest question for me. Um, I cannot wait to watch that one. I think it's going to be an absolute cracker. But I think, again, one versus two, maybe on the ladder. I don't think this is one versus two in best two teams in the competition. Again, no disrespect, Hawks fans, but it's hard for me to sit here and say the Hawks are the second best team in the competition. I think either Brisbane or Melbourne are probably the second best team when it comes to it. Is this ladder position with who you've played. So I have North in this one. The first of two fascinating ones. West Coast, Carlton, out at Sullivan Logistics Stadium in Perth. Carlton have to make the long travel out to Perth. But is Ella Roberts healthy? I'm going to tip Carlton in this one because I don't think a hamstring injury is going to be something they can come back with in a week. I love the depth of Carlton. I know it's a long trip out to Perth, but I think Carlton is ready for it. The fun part will be is managing fatigue in the fourth quarter, especially coming off an on and off game against GWS with the Lightning. They were able to hold in some energy because it was a relatively easy win, but a long trip to West Coast, it'll be fun. So I like Carlton in this one. West Coast, I think that injury to Ella Roberts, I think is worst possible timing.
Yeah, I think interesting as well. Carlton only a 5 day break, having to travel over to the other side of the country to play West Coast. Look, I'd still back him as well. I think it's that logic versus you know, the romance of, a chaotic and dramatic final round of the season. I think the being at home, I think will give West Coast as much of an advantage as they really probably need. Of course, we don't know what's going to happen with Ella Roberts, and we won't know before this podcast, like well, before recording this podcast. So look, I really hope that Ella is fit and okay to play because I would love West Coast to just be able to throw everything they have at
Mhm.
Carlton. But I just think the Blues will be too strong, and I think they've gained some good momentum with that win on the weekend, and then hopefully we'll sort of push them a little bit closer to finals, and that will kind of get them over the line.
Yep, no, 100% with you on that one. Like I said, but Noella Roberts makes it even harder for me to tip them. So 100% with you on that one. A fun one at Henson Park up in Sydney, where we saw last year a cracking game at the end of the year last year. We see the same matchup as GWS take on Port Adelaide at Henson Park. Power Giants. Who do you like?
Oh, I think Port will be full of confidence on the back of their showdown, their first showdown victory. I also wonder how much the conditions, that's another thing with the Carlton thing, how much the conditions on Sunday, the Lightning and stuff like that played havoc with them. I just think that for the Giants, you've touched on it, Donny, in the review of their game, it's sort of how who's kicking goals and what is their supply like going forward. So I'll go with Port in this one.
Gonna go with Port, but I'll say this. Sometimes big wins like the week before, when you play a team you're supposed to beat, sometimes you have a little bit of a letdown. So I again, not trying to again touch wood to the Port fans. I know that'll keep track of this. Port should win this one. Port have the better team. Port have more talent. Port have better form. But this is one of those again, end of the year. Port's not going to make finals, unfortunately, unless all insanity goes out, which I just don't see happening enough to get them in. Could you have a letdown against the GWS Giants team that literally have a crack last game of the season, go out, and you doesn't really matter because you're done after the season's over with. Perfect danger game for me. Still going to tip Port, but again, I think the Giants are going to be a little bit more into it than I think some people are giving credit for, purely on the situation, the high of coming off the showdown win. Sometimes you have a little bit of a letdown in the next one, so keep an eye on that one. So, Icon Park, as we have the two teams fighting for the spoon, Richmond versus Gold Coast. Icon Park, Richmond get the win, Gold Coast get the spoon. Gold Coast win, and potentially Richmond could get the spoon. This is a fascinating one on this one. Who do you like in this one?
I'll go Richmond. Richmond in Melbourne. Um, that just makes sense, doesn't it?
Yep. I will tip Richmond. I don't Gold Coast is not tanking. I'm not saying that they are, but I think it would be very beneficial for Gold Coast if they do get the one seed, because then like I said, who knows how they handle the bidding with Ava Usher? Do they just take her with number one so they don't have to deal with it? Or do they play some games, draft somebody else, make some moves to where they can get the top two players? It'll be fascinating to see how that goes. So I have Richmond in this one at Icon Park. Up at Coffs Harbour, I cannot wait for this one as Sydney travel up to Coffs Harbour to take on Essendon. Again, I will put my coach's hat on, not my red hat, and say, again, Sydney feeling better. I know, like I said, no Chi. I'm hoping Chloe's back, but I wouldn't be surprised if Coach Gowans gives her an extra week. So then if they do make finals, Chloe is cherry ripe come time for finals. So gonna tip Sydney. Again, a few missing pieces concerns me just the tiniest bit, but this is an Essendon side. They're being held together with every adhesive they possibly can find. I just think Sydney need to win this one. I think they get the girls up and about. Coffs Harbour, I think will be fantastic. Swans win this one, but I think Essendon's in it a little bit longer than some people want it to be. I think this could be a closer game than some people expect. Swans, but I think Essendon give them a crack.
I think Swans. I don't think there's too much to worry about there.
All right. GMHBA Stadium, Geelong versus Melbourne, and a fascinating one here. This is a banana skin for me. If I'm Melbourne, I'm terrified because there's a Cats team. Again, they're not making finals. Have some fun. Affect the finals could be. D's I will tip, but it will not shock me if Geelong pulls stunner here. Will not shock me a bit because this is a Cats team purely on should be a finals team. Again, I think their fixture is the reason why they're not there.
Yeah, no, I was going to say the same thing. I quite like the Cats. I think they're one of those sides that you just always feel nervous playing. I definitely do. But I think Melbourne, but with no confidence. I think Geelong could win this one easily if they wanted to.
Yep, definitely with you on that one. Collingwood at home at Victoria Park taking on Brisbane. As much as I would love a stunner here, the Pies pulling one out of a rabbit's hat. I think the Brisbane Lions just too good. Even down in Victoria, I got the Lions in this one.
Yeah, me too. Lions starting to peak at the right time, so I'd think they'd be looking at this one and really thinking it's a chance for them to try a few things ahead of the finals.
And the next one, I think is another one could potentially be a banana skin for a finals team as St. Kilda at RSEA Park in Melbourne take on the Doggies. And this one, I will say the same thing that I said against Melbourne. I'm going to tip St. Kilda, but I'm telling you right now, if the Doggies play their way that they can, this is a danger game for the Saints. They cannot take this Doggies team lightly because on their day, they can put up points. They're tough, they tackle well. And again, Ellie Blackburn will not let her side go down without a whimper. Tipping Saints, thinking Doggies could make this an interesting night for the St. Kilda faithful.
I'm going for St Kilda. I think they'd be keen to bounce back after the game on the weekend against North, and I think they'd be keen to finish off the home and away season and launch into finals on a win. So I'd be going for St Kilda for sure.
And last but not least, the game we talked about so much. I cannot wait. I didn't tip it earlier because I wanted to leave it for now. Crows, Dockers, the chance. Will the Crows miss finals if they drop this one? Or can the Crows make sure they make another finals series, even by the skin of their teeth? Crows, Dockers, who do you like?
God, I hope the Dockers win. Like I would just, there's no disrespect to Adelaide. I just think that would be elite. Um, but I'll go Adelaide. I'll play it safe.
Okay. I'm gonna tip the Crows because they're at home. If this was at Fremantle Oval, I'd be a little more keen to tip Fremantle just because again, this is a whole different situation for a Crow side. Mostly, again, it's not the same, but a younger Crow side on the road needing a win, sometimes that's a lot of pressure on a side that again has a lot more youngsters than they do a veteran experience than previous years. Tipping Crows, but the Dockers, there's something about the way that they're built this year that I just never know when they're going to pull a stunner. And
Yeah.
this potentially could be that. Again, I am so intrigued at this. This game starts at 1:05 a.m. my time. I may sit down and watch the. I may make sure I'm up for this game because I
Yeah.
don't know how I can miss it because
No,
this could
it'll
be
be
an
good.
absolute legendary game if results turn out the way they go. So that is it. That is all 9 games. That is all round 12 tipped. Marnie, as per usual, a fantastic chat. I love sitting and talking footy with you. So I will let you have your moment again. Tell us a little bit again. Kanga TV going strong, so much fun. I know the labor of love that it is for you. Tell us what's been going on at Kangaroo TV, and is there should we be keeping it out for some great content over this off season?
Absolutely. Channel just turned one a couple weeks ago, which is insane to think it's been a whole year of the channel. It's been amazing. Obviously, the draft, the AFL draft is coming up in a few weeks for the men, and then women's, of course, finals is just around the corner. So there's always plenty of content. I think I just try and find the different people and stories in between all the news to kind of give North fans a little something to keep them going over the off season. So yeah, definitely the place to be for all North fans or anyone who wants to stay up to date with the best football club in the world.
I love it. Absolutely love it. So your passion is fantastic. Again, I respect it, love it. Again, it's maybe it's me is I know people up here at the States that they jump ship when their team doesn't play so well. So to see somebody that you've had some struggles keeping track of this men's side, again, the frustration. But like I said, the gift that is your women's side this year has been fantastic for me to watch because just seeing the joy on so many North Melbourne supporters' faces as they watch this women's side continue to show how good they really are. It has been incredible. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for another episode of Donnie's Disposals. Again, if you like the way this old American covers the footy, please like and subscribe. Would love to have you stay on and keep track of it. Again, some awesome footy content going again. We have the women's finals that we will talk about again. I will do like I normally do. We will preview the final after round 12, and then we will come back and talk all the finals, everything that's happened, review the grand final and the season to end. And then my off-season supporter series is just around the corner. And again, I have a fantastic series. I have some incredible guests that I cannot wait to sit down and have a chat with over the long winter season for me, the summer season for you guys. But I will be keeping track of it. Cannot wait. We keep footy alive. You know, I will have a draft. I'll have a draft and free agency show for the men, also for the women, and that will be this year done and dusted. Cannot wait. A sad time of the year. The end of the footy season is always difficult. So that's going to do it for this episode of Donnie's Disposals. And if you like it, we'll be back again very, very soon with more footy coverage.